This is TWiT.
Tim Wu had a column in the Times today that drove me nutty, siding with Trump's...
I like Tim Wu. I was shocked by that.
Because you're shutting off Sarah. So what he said was I know I'm dancing around 5 stories in the rundown, driving Carson crazy, but that's what I do for a living. He's siding with Trump. He's agreeing with Trump on TikTok. And the problem is you're not cutting off TikTok. You're cutting off Sarah Cooper.
Right.
You're cutting off
He says it's foolish of us to allow TikTok to exist when China is shutting down Facebook and Twitter. We should be doing the same back. He mentions people like me who think that the open web is something to be promoted and honored, and that in fact we can unilaterally do that, just as we almost unilaterally do it with democracy. He says the asymmetry between China, the country's extensive blocking, censorship, and surveillance, and the way U.S. treats it should no longer be tolerated. The privilege of full internet access, the open internet, should be extended only to companies from countries that respect that openness themselves.
Like America killing TikTok? Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think I would stand on the side that says, no, that's the whole point, is that we have to stand up for an open internet, and that it's not justified to do what they do. Yeah.
But would this leak into other aspects of our society, as far as like the industrial side of things?
Well, yes, there's consequences.
China for so much.
And Tim does point out that the President Trump is not perhaps the best bearer of this message. Some think that it's a tragic mistake, Wu writes. By the way, the headline of the article it's an opinion piece in the New York Times today. A TikTok ban is overdue. Some think that it's a tragic mistake for the United States to violate the principles of internet openness that were pioneered in this country. But there is also such a thing as being a sucker. If China refuses to follow the rules of the open internet, why continue to give it access to internet markets around the world? Well, because we believe in open internet. By the way,
I said this last week.
Yeah, I got no problem.
Europe is saying the same thing about us.
I have no problem with the Department of Defense banning it from phones and military personnel. I have no problem with the Commerce Department and the government saying you can't have it. I have no problems with private enterprise like Wells Fargo Bank saying no TikTok on your company phone. And I also have no problem with individual users like me deleting TikTok, because I did do it after Amy Webb convinced me of the
when
on
last
Sunday.
Week you were saying it was fine.
I know. Well, no, I am still saying it's fine.
You are just so fickle.
I'm still saying it's fine. I would not want to ban it.
New information.
I'm saying as an individual. Her point was ByteDance, we think of it as a social media company, the owner of TikTok. They're actually an AI company. They were instrumental in China's social credit score system. And that, in fact, I'm actually not worried about the privacy invasion of TikTok. I think it's legitimate to worry about how TikTok could be weaponized as a propaganda tool. We already know that they banned Uyghurs and Hong Kong and so forth from TikTok. So I choose as an individual, and I don't think there's anything wrong for an individual to choose not to have TikTok on their device, but I would never support a nationwide ban against TikTok. Same thing with Facebook. I don't have Facebook on my phone. I would never have any Facebook app on my phone, but it should not be banned. We would all agree on that.
I haven't either, and I really don't care if either of those get banned. I get why people would be upset, but it doesn't really move the needle for me one way or the other.
I think we need to stand up. I don't think our government, at least as constructed as in favor of open and free speech, should be doing that kind of thing. I don't have any problem with private individuals or institutions that want to do it, but not our government.
Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free expression thereof or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or of the right to people peaceably to assemble, which is what they do on TikTok, and to petition the government for a redress of grievances, which is what they do on Twitter and Facebook.
Right. So I think it's...
And so what has happened now is this is now a First Amendment issue.
Yeah.
And...
But does the First Amendment protect the Chinese government?
Well,
or
they
a Chinese
protect
company?
Sarah Cooper. If
she's using
Sarah
it to speak.
Cooper's printing press is TikTok.
That's a good point.
This is a whole new area of law that I don't see people go for. Now, I was on with two people I respect on a podcast a couple weeks ago, and they said they thought it was a First Amendment issue.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to look at it.
Filippo di Strada in 1474 petitioned the Doge of Venice to stop printers, because the printers were foreign Germans coming in and stealing his work as a scribe and polluting the minds of children and getting drunk on their money. And stop it, he said. Stop it. These foreigners are doing terrible things here in Italy. That was a downer. Sorry.
I was like, and one more time.
So what's going on with foreigners in Italy? I need to know.
It's a parallel. This is why we have a First Amendment, to protect against that kind of government action.
Now Larry Ellison.
The Doge didn't do it.
Now Larry Ellison and Oracle want to buy TikTok.
Well, it's okay. He's going to ruin it anyway. Jesus.
Help me understand the rash. Like, I saw that.
Yes.
I've covered Oracle.
I think the president asked him to, because he's
I was going to say, is this just like weird cronyism?
Yeah, I think that's what it is.
Yeah, it is. Trump already endorsed that, which is none of his damn business.
Right.
But he endorsed Ellison's purchase.
It'd be like the government shutting down comic books, which it wanted to, by the way.
Oh yeah.
And there's a great Comic Book Confidential, great documentary about that era. They even show Al Gaines, the founder of Mad Magazine. But before that, he did, horror magazines, horror comics, and testifying in front of Congress, because Congress was very close, I think, to shutting down comic books in the 50s. And the comic book...
I did not know that.
Yeah, the comic book industry, because it was, think of the kids, the comic book industry prevented it by self-regulating. They created the comic book code, which ruined comic books for about 10 years. But it did create Mad Magazine, so that's the good thing.
So wait. So the comic book, what did the comic book code decree?
You couldn't do anything. So Gaines tells the story in Comic Book Confidential. Again, great documentary about one of the comic books where the hero had beads of sweat, and the comic book code censor said, "Can we take the sweat off his brow?" It was to eliminate. I could read you the comic book code, but it had the effect of basically bowdlerizing comic books so that it'd be safe for kids.
Wow!
But of complete lack of interest. So the code was voluntary, but everybody was expected to adhere to it. You would submit the comic to the CCA for screening. So it was essentially a censorship operation. And it lasted a good long time. Let me see if I can find. It prohibited the presentation of policemen, judges, government officials, and respected institutions in such a way as to create disrespect for established authority. In every instance, good should... Well, this is no sadomasochism, that's for sure. And then in every instance, good should triumph over evil. Discouraged instances of law enforcement officers dying as a result of criminal activities. Depictions of excessive violence were forbidden, as well as lurid, unsavory, gruesome illustrations. Vampires, werewolves, ghouls, and zombies were banned outright. Comics could not use the word horror or terror in their titles. The word crime was subject to numerous restrictions. No sexy, wanton comics, of course.
I didn't know all of this.
Yeah. So,
but
love
sweat
stories.
On the brow.
Sweat from the brow. I think that's lurid.
Wow.
Love stories were enjoined to emphasize the sanctity of marriage, and those portraying scenes of passion were advised to avoid stimulating lower and baser emotions. And all this was voluntary, but it was really to save comics. Because,
How long did it stay in force?
It was created in 1954, and it looks like it took until the year 2000. That can't be right, before nobody paid any attention to it.
I remember that logo.
No, I actually know it's true. There was like Dark Horse and stuff. I think that's Were they? No, they were publishing.
Underground Comics came around, and in fact, the documentary interviews Robert Crumb, and so there were these. They didn't bother, but they didn't care about distribution. Remember, part of the problems with the comic book code was no newsstand, no drugstore would carry a comic that didn't have the seal of approval. So Underground Comics didn't care if they were in the drugstores. They were in head shops and stuff like that. So that's when it started to break, is in the 60s and the 70s. But, boy, the code was revised in 1971. Yeah.
Jeez.
We have a, yeah.
I need to find this documentary.
Violence was allowed by the 1980s. By the 2000s, advertisers no longer made decisions to advertise based on the appearance of the stamp. Most new publishers to emerge during this time did not join the CCA. So, literally, until 20 years ago.
Wow. Wow.
In 2001, the CCA rejected an issue of the Marvel Comics series X-Force requiring changes to be made. Instead, Marvel stopped submitting its comics and implemented its own rating system.
Can you imagine there was still a room filled with old biddies looking at comic books in 2001?
You got it. I'm telling you, Comic Book Confidential. Wow. They have a scene where a comic book artist submits his comic, and it's literally an old biddy going, no, I don't know. And then he goes and takes it back and takes off the beads of sweat or whatever and resubmits it. And she goes, stamps it. It's okay.
Wow.
It's amazing.
This is called Comic Book Confidential?
Yeah. It's a great documentary. I was
watching this is what the world now wants for Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok.